Hello and welcome to EatSure presents the RCB podcast.
I still don't know the actual amount. There's some of Dad's mates from back home, and I've never found out the full story. They like to keep it a bit of a secret, but obviously the newspapers grabbed hold of it, and it sort of got not blown out of proportion, but I think the numbers got skewed a bit, and they certainly didn't win that much. It was just a little friendly bet they had when they were in the UK on a cricket tour. So, but no, when I was back home one time, I was having a few drinks and a meal with a few of the mates, and I went up to pay the bill at the end, and the person behind the counter said it had already been taken care of by this gentleman in the corner. And all he said was, "Thanks for playing Test cricket." So I assume he was one of the people.
Hello and welcome to the RCB podcast. My name is Danish and we're talking about game-changing moments. With me today is a game changer in every sense, Josh Hazlewood. Josh, welcome to the RCB podcast.
Thank you.
Last year was incredible for you. You won the World Cup and you had a dream season with CSK. How much has that kind of changed you as a T20 bowler?
Yeah, it's probably just given me a lot of confidence.
Yeah.
Being a part of those teams, winning tournaments and doing well, I think, confidence is a huge factor. It's probably more important for batters, I think, but bowlers are very similar in that regard. And you're obviously working hard all the time at training and different things, and working on different varieties and Yorkers and different things. So I think it's the confidence to put them into practice and bowl them in a match and get the results that gives you a lot of confidence.
If one were to draw out a list of the best bowlers in this generation, your name features across formats, and you speak with bowlers, and there's so much chat about the white ball versus the red ball. Do you really see a difference between them, or for you it is cricket?
For me, it's cricket. I think obviously Test cricket still stands out for me as the biggest challenge and the biggest test. Doing your skill over 5 days, mentally, physically, and it's just a huge task. But yeah, for me, I think the way I bowl probably helps. My style doesn't change a hell of a lot between the formats. So it's probably just the last 2 overs of a T20 that I bowl is very different, and then everything else is line and length, as they say. And I guess Test cricket, you move your length up probably a metre or two. To bring in the stumps a lot more, but apart from that, it's line and length for me. Might be a more difficult change for different bowlers who might bowl through the middle in T20 or rely heavily on their change of pace, their Yorkers and different things, and then it's a hard transition back to Test cricket. But for me, it's quite easy, I think.
It's almost like you're living multiple lives, right? I mean, when you play a different format, you're living a different person almost. Is it hard, or is it easy for you to keep moving from one character to being another character?
I think it's good. It's refreshing.
Right.
I think if you're playing a different sport where there's just one format, you could get in a rut. And if you're not playing, great cricket let's say football or soccer, then if you're not playing very well in that format, you might get stuck in a rut a little bit. But it feels like in cricket, just when that's about to happen, you might transition into one-day cricket or Test cricket, and it's sort of just refreshing to get a different colour ball in your hand, have a different format, different teammates around you. So, yeah, I'd say it's refreshing, yeah.
You started out as an athlete, throwing the javelin and the shot put, and you also won the Australian National Championship. You won a gold there. Why did you then pivot to cricket and not continue with athletics?
I think I always played cricket was my first passion, and I think sort of I was around probably 15 or 16 years old when I guess had to make a choice sort of. I really just did athletics in the winter to keep myself fit and get some time off school, really. But yeah, cricket was my main passion, and it was a team event, obviously. So I think that sort of pushed me in that direction. It's a lot more fun playing with your teammates than sort of a solo career in athletics, which can be a bit lonely sometimes.
It's interesting you say that because, we celebrated an athlete in our country, Neeraj Chopra, for winning a gold at the javelin event. And we kind of saw this as individual glory, and we all celebrated it as a nation. When you're a part of a team, do sometimes individual contributions go amiss, you think, even if a team does well?
Yeah, I think they can, definitely. But I think, individual sports are so difficult. Not that I've done them for a long period of time, but there's probably more low days than high days, I guess. And if you're a team in a team event, then it's probably 50-50, you're going to win or lose the game. And even if you have a bad day or a bad week, then your teammates can have a great week and you can enjoy their success. And that's probably something I've learned over the years, to enjoy everyone's success in the team, rather than just your own. So it's a long time between drinks if you're just enjoying your own success. Yeah, if you're enjoying the team and the way they're going, then it's a lot cruisier.
Though the one thing that's common between, say, a javelin and cricket as a bowler for you is the fact that you get to do the same thing not once, but you can do it thrice or four times, and each time do a different thing to get a better result. So does a little bit of that from your childhood kind of carry on to you being the fast bowler that you are today?
Yeah, I think you could make that transition. I think one of the most difficult things for me was, in cricket, obviously the technique is quite important, as it is in javelin, but cricket, you're bowling the ball and you're following through down the wicket, whereas javelin, you're throwing it and trying to stop before the line. So I guess it's, I just didn't quite have, the best technique in either, because I was just transitioning from one to the next each six or every sort of twice a year. So it made it difficult, and that probably helped towards the decision, I guess.
So you come from a small town in Australia and then you move to a bigger city. What was that move like for you?
It was pretty daunting, really. I was 18 years old. Lived at home till I was 18, obviously, with mum and dad, and had everything looked after for me. And the move out was quite daunting at the time. I mean, from, as you mentioned, 200 people live in the town I grew up in, to Sydney, which is 4 or 5 million people. Not big in terms of Indian population, but I think just the traffic, how busy everything was, took a long time to get anywhere with cars on the road. So it was, and then I guess the household things with washing and cooking and cleaning and doing everything yourself. So big transition. I think what helped was obviously the guys around the New South Wales cricket team, and a lot were in the same boat, moving from country areas to the city. So we spent plenty of time together, and obviously playing cricket and training, which is what you're used to doing.
Just to talk about the unsung heroes, your parents, I'm sure they were incredibly supportive with the move as well. What were some of the sacrifices that they had to make in order for you to make this transition?
Just giving up their time, mostly. Cricket it's not over in an hour. And a lot of the times it's probably the travel. Being in such a remote area in Australia, it's a long way for representative games, and training, even down in Sydney or Newcastle or just around the country New South Wales area. It's a minimum hour, 2 hour, 3 hour drive each way. Sit there for 6 or 7 hours watching a game of cricket. So a lot of time was given up, not just for me, for my brother and sister as well. They were playing sport, in different areas again. So mum and dad were unreal, and it obviously is not free travelling around like that. So yeah, they obviously spent a lot of money on me.
So being in a big city and coming from a small town, did it change you as a person, or in the heart, are you still just a small town boy who is living this big dream?
I hope it doesn't change me too much. I still think, I'm that sort of country boy who loves getting back to the small town and just that environment of everyone knowing everyone. It's a really friendly environment, and I really enjoy getting back there. So it's a good way to get away from cricket, get away from the pressures, I guess, of playing professional sport. And people up there sort of very relaxed and just talk about the weather and farming and different things. So it's relaxing.
When you made your Test debut, you got some really big wickets. There was Cheteshwar Pujara, there was Virat Kohli, there was MS Dhoni, and who's the fourth person?
Jinx,
Right.
Ajinka.
That's literally the entire top order. Did your parents' friends throw bets that you were going to do this?
There was a story of a bet put on that I would play Test cricket before the age of 30.
Okay.
But I think the numbers have been skewed quite a lot.
What were the bets? What were the stakes, and who took how much home?
I still don't know the actual amount. There's some of Dad's mates from back home, and I've never found out the full story. They like to keep it a bit of a secret, but obviously the newspapers grabbed hold of it, and it sort of got not blown out of proportion, but I think the numbers got skewed a bit, and they certainly didn't win that much. It was just a little friendly bet they had when they were in the UK on a cricket tour. So, but no, when I was back home one time, I was having a few drinks and a meal with a few of the mates, and I went up to pay the bill at the end, and the person behind the counter said it had already been taken care of by this gentleman in the corner. And all he said was, "Thanks for playing Test cricket." So I assume he was one of the people.
Oh, wow, that's a great story. So, when you got your Test cap, who gave it to you, and how big a moment was that?
It was a huge moment. It's sort of, I guess, it's the type of moment that everyone dreams of as a young kid playing cricket, representing their country in Test cricket. So, Glenn McGrath was the person who gave me my cap in Brisbane against India, obviously. It was Steve Smith's first Test as captain, and the one thing I remember about that day is it's probably one of the hottest days of cricket I've ever played in. I think I was off just after tea time with cramps. So, came back luckily the next day, and we bowled India out and went on to win the game. But, it was a tough initiation.
How often have you been compared to the man who gave you your cap?
Nearly every day, I'd say, since I started playing for New South Wales. Probably before that, even just playing in the country, I guess, with him being from a country area as well, near Dubbo. Then, very similar, I guess, in the way we go about our business of bowling, and similar backgrounds. So there's plenty of things alike there, and it's probably since I've been 15, 16 years old.
I was having a chat with Harshal yesterday, and growing up as fans, we hear these stories of how these 1 rupee coins are placed on the pitch, and a bowler is asked to drop the ball on that particular coin, so you can take the coin if you do that. And I asked him if he's collected a few 1 rupee coins along the way, and he said, "Man, I was never that accurate." I said, "So who do you think is that accurate?" And he said, "Josh." So how many of these pennies or 1 rupee coins have you picked up along the way?
I guess it's a little bit different in Australia. I mean, we play in the backyard is probably where we first played cricket.
Right.
My brother's 2 years older than me, so we played every afternoon in summer after school until it was dark, and then we'd try and turn the lights on and play in the dark. So I think it's just through repetition and playing so many hours of cricket in the backyard, first of all, to be that accurate. And I think it's my weapon, accuracy, and if I'm not bowling accurate, then I'm not doing my job. So I think what it comes down to in the end is how my action is set up. I've done a lot of work on it. In particular, probably 2 or 3 years ago, coming back from injury, I worked on it again and just tightened everything up. And I think if I look after everything at my end, then the ball goes where I want. So a lot to do with the action as well.
Josh, When did the switch kind of flip? When did you realize this is it? I belong here.
For T20 cricket or just
Just cricket.
in general?
Was there a game that you remember or a moment when you were standing with the ball, at the top of your run up and you thought, this is it?
Yeah, I think if I go back quite a while, I was playing first class cricket for New South Wales,
Yeah.
and probably played maybe 20 or 25 games and hadn't got a fifer yet. I hadn't bowled poorly by any means, but I just get 2 for 3 for and not going for many runs. And I think I just hadn't got my head around, you got to bowl all day, you got to bowl the team out twice. 5 wickets is one of those things that bowlers strive for. And I think I played in the Sheffield Shield final in Australia, and that was my first fifer. I got 6 for 50 in the final against West Australia, and I thought, being a final was probably a step in between first class and Test cricket, and to perform in that game and take 6 wickets and help us win the game, I think that was probably a moment that sort of pushed me to the next level and gave me that confidence to feel like I belong.
Would a word like committed be apt to describe you?
Yeah, in certain sense, I guess. I'm certainly committed whenever I'm, at training or preparing for training and games. Certainly committed. I certainly still like to get away from cricket as much as I can, and especially when I'm, got some downtime, got some holiday time to go home and really get away from it. But yeah, I think whenever it's time on and time to switch on for business, then it's committed, I'd say.
What do you like doing besides cricket? Because I was speaking with JB, and he was telling me how he's doing his MBA in between cricket. The other person that comes to my mind is AB de Villiers. Saw him once running up with a stack of papers, studying, I think, property law or one of those fancy things.
Wow.
How do you get your mind off the game? What do you like doing?
No, certainly not. Certainly not study.
Okay.
Well, certainly not yet. Anyway, maybe towards the end of my career. But I think golf's a big one. I love
Yeah.
playing golf. I love playing any sports really. Watching sport, but golf's a big one for me. And probably since COVID came in, it was the only sport we could play in Australia. So we sort of got out there and joined some clubs and played a lot of golf in the space over the last 3 years. One of the first things I pack on tour now with Bubble Life is the gaming console, the PS5. So plenty of time playing the games with whoever's on, and I think it's more just the talk. You got your headset on and you're just interacting with mates from wherever it is. In other cricket teams, back home in the country. So it's sort of nice to keep in touch that way, and you're enjoying yourself and passing the time by at the same stage. I think getting home is a big one as well. It hasn't happened as much since COVID again. Just through having those periods of time to get home and wind down with the family and sort of feel like a normal person and hang out with some normal family and just get away from cricket.
But what have been like some of the moments where you've probably been at the top of your run up and thought, why am I doing this? Have you ever had that thought cross your mind? Which is almost existential, right? Because all of us in our 20s and 30s go through that.
Yeah. I think
Has that ever happened to you?
it has at training at certain times. I don't
has?
think it necessarily happened during a game. It probably has in a test match when everything's hurting and you've just had enough and it's hot and your legs hurting, your back's hurting.
Do you remember a game like that when somebody was just batting and you're like, why am I doing this? This guy won't get out. Has that ever happened?
Pujara's name comes to mind.
What's the story? Tell us about that.
Puj loves batting. Hates getting out. So I mean, it's a bigger thrill for the bowlers, I think. When you do end up getting his wicket, it means you've earned it. It means you put in a lot of hard work. Whether it's the 5th ball he faces, you've already bowled to him in previous Test matches, so you've earned that respect and you've earned that wicket. So he's someone we've had some great tussles against over the years, and in particularly probably in Australia. He's one that Australians probably love to hate, but he's a fantastic player, and I guess that's part of Test cricket. When you do get him out, you've earned it.
What's the relationship within the team here at RCB been like for you? Virat, you've played against him, but now you're on the same side. Maxi and you have been teammates for a long time. What's that been like inside this bubble for you?
Yeah, it's been it's always exciting to play with guys that you've played against and played with Maxi obviously, but Virat, Faf I've ended up playing with the last few years. Played
Yeah.
against
Oh
him for a
yes,
lot of
of course.
years as well.
CSK. Yeah.
But yeah, it's good just to see the other side of it and realise they're great people. You're obviously used to coming up just on the field against them, and you see a different side of them, I guess. But away from the game, around the hotel, you see such great people. And I don't think many cricketers get to this level without being good people away from the game.
Yeah.
So that's one of the things I really enjoy. And obviously the cricket side of it, to play with these guys and learn from them is it's outstanding. Just having them on the field, so much experience, not just in the playing, but in the coaching staff as well. Just playing in those different teams, you just learn so much, and I guess it's just about absorbing that information and taking with you what works.
We kind of celebrate speed all the time in this tournament. Somebody runs in and throws it at 155, and we're like, wow, this is all over Twitter. Somebody throws it at 157, and we're like,
Yeah.
wow, this is insane. Does it kind of do something to you? Do you also sometimes just feel like, man, just hold on, let me run in and throw it at 160 and win this once and for all?
From what I know of, bowling fast, we probably bowl faster when we're younger, when we're just caution to the wind and just go for it. And as you get older, you realise it hurts. It hurts a lot. Anytime I see Mitchell Starc bowl a spell over 155 plus, he feels the consequences the next day and the next day and the next day. So it's to push it that fast, you're probably going to see more of it in T20 cricket with only 4 overs being bowled, and it's been awesome to see the quicks this year.
Is it worth 100,000 Indian rupees?
Probably. You only have to bowl one. So, obviously Umar Malik, Lockie Ferguson, those guys.
Yeah.
It's outstanding to watch, and, some of the wickets really suit it and the ball flies through and it's great. And then there's other nights where it's not your friend and the ball just goes to the boundary faster. So I can work both ways, I guess.
It's incredible. I don't think you're on social media, right?
No.
Why have you kept yourself away from it? Because this is a generation that's constantly looking for validation on social media. Everybody wants the likes. It's dopamine straight, all over the place. So how come you've kept yourself away from it?
I think that's probably the small town country boy inside of me, I guess.
Right.
I've never really gotten into it, a tiny bit in high school maybe, but just never really piqued my interest. And talking to a few of the other guys, mainly in the Australian team, just about how much negative talk is on social media, whatever platform it is. And I've just seen a few people get dragged down by it, I guess, over the years when they're not having such a good run with their performances. So it's never really enticed me to get on there at all. I'm enjoying the freedom.
Your partner was over, and suddenly the focus shifted from you to her. All of us thought what she does is way cooler than what you do. She's a cop, and you're out there getting people out all the time, basically catching people off guard, doing the wrong things. How much sort of how is she? Has she added to your cricket career?
Yeah, definitely. Been together a long time now, and it's I think her just having her own career, her own life. It's essential, I think. And the amount of time we're away from home, she has to keep busy, and she loves what she does, which is awesome.
We all think it's awesome, man. She's certified cool. She comes with like a certificate that says cool.
Yeah, being a detective is it's pretty cool. She comes home with some great stories. Again, to get away from my thinking about cricket, about what I'm doing, it's about listening to her, and she's got some cool stories. So it's good fun.
You're a world champion. You've won a World Cup. You've won Test matches. You've won the IPL. What is a winner's mindset?
Um, Again, I don't try and think outside. I don't try and think result based, I guess. So I think about the process and think about, all the hard work I've done at training all the way through to the big events. And it's just about being yourself, I think, and staying in your lane and doing your job for the team on that particular night.
Yeah.
As soon as you start thinking about, this could be a World Cup win, this could be an IPL win, you sort of get distracted from your role.
Yeah.
So it's just about, I know it's hard, but just trying to treat that game like any other game, like you're playing in the backyard against your brother, 20 years ago.
Yeah.
Just doing your role, doing your job, and everything else will take care of itself.
So through all these moments that you've lived and through all these things that have been life-changing, career-changing, have you ever lost patience or lost faith in the process?
I think there would have been at times, definitely. I can't think of one in the last. I think the last 3 or 4, even 5 years have been a lot different for me than probably before that. I probably got a little bit impatient when I first started playing Test cricket, I think. It's such a long game and you got to have your patience for 5 days for a 5-match series or whatever the series is.
Yeah.
And you can lose your patience at certain times, and then my style of bowling goes out the window and the batter gets away and we've got to start again. So can take a long time to learn that. But certainly in the last 4 or 5 years, I feel like I've been, on the money more often than not. And I guess you learn that through experience.
One final question, Josh. I mean, we're talking about game-changing moments, and clearly in your case, there have been so many. But if I had to ask you to pick your favorite one, which one would it be?
I think it took me a bit by, not surprise, but it sort of came to me pretty early and pretty quickly. The Home World Cup in 2015. I'd probably only played maybe 20 or 30 one-day games for Australia. I remember a book I had when I was a kid. It was a history of one-day World Cup cricket from 1975, I think, to about 2003 when the book came out, and Australia just won a couple in a row. And to play one at home, I remember all the senior players saying how rare this is to be in this team at home with a chance to win a World Cup at home. It just doesn't come around very often. And I remember all the young guys thinking, we'll play this one and then we'll play one in a couple of years' time. And then you sort of look and the next one's in England, the next one's in India. And then by the time it gets back to potentially Australia, you've retired. So sort of looking back now, realising how big that was and winning that World Cup at the MCG with, 97,000 people there, I think, doing the lap of honour afterwards and hardly anyone had left. They're on the top tiers when you're walking around. It was unbelievable feeling. I sort of look back and probably should have enjoyed that a bit more at the time. But every time I think about it, I enjoy it now.
Yeah, well, you have an opportunity again in the second half of this year when the T20 World Cup returns to Australia. You said something really interesting about, I wish I'd enjoyed that moment a lot more. What were you doing in that moment that made you miss out on the moment?
I certainly enjoyed it and
Right.
enjoyed it for the week afterwards. But I think just at the time, that moment might not come around again. And as you mentioned, we've got the opportunity this year in the T20 format to do it at home.
And now you become the senior guy telling another younger guy.
I'll be telling the young guys to really enjoy it. You don't know if this is going to happen again. So, hopefully we can replicate that. But, it's so hard to win these tournaments. India, England, South Africa, Pakistan, the teams are unreal. So it's a huge challenge. But, again, you've got to stay in your lane, do your job, and hopefully it takes care of itself.
Thanks for the driving lessons, Josh.
No worries. Thank you.